The movie begins with a New Yorker, Jamie, and an LA resident, Dylan, getting dumped by their significant others in their respective cities. After the devastating breakup, the two individuals complain to their respective friends about their failing love life. As they swear to focus on work from that moment onwards and abandon any further romantic pursuits. Sounds like an average Friday night to me. Later on, we learn that Jamie, who is a headhunter for GQ magazine, has been tasked to recruit Dylan, as he's a talented content creator who is highly sought after.
Oh no!
On meeting him, she helps him with his luggage and leads him to the company, as he has an interview scheduled later that day. After a lengthy meeting, Dylan exits the building and finds Jamie waiting for him outside. She informs him that he got the job and was offered a mouth-watering deal. However, Dylan is indecisive and isn't fully sold on the idea of working with GQ.
Which is why I'm not gonna try to sell you on the job.
It's New York.
Hearing this, Jamie embarks on a quest to convince him to accept the offer. She takes him on a tour around New York, giving him a glimpse of what his life would be like in the new city. After touring several locations, the duo ends up in Times Square.
Right here. We're here.
Where they get caught up in a flash mob's dance. Never witnessing anything like this, Dylan initially freaks out but eventually joins in on the fun, as he tries his best to mimic the crowd's choreography. At the end of the routine, he tells Jamie that he'd take the job offer, thus leaving her in a joyous mood.
I'll take the job.
Oh my god!
After a few days, Dylan fully moves to the new city and resumes his post as an art director in the corporation.
Open. Hey, thanks guys.
On his first day at the job, Jamie drops by to visit him, bringing along with her a one-year contract deal, which he signs. Before she leaves, Dylan suggests they grab lunch together,
Are you asking me out?
Well, I'm not asking you out. I'm asking you to show me a restaurant.
which Jamie agrees to. As they enjoy their meal together, the duo talk about their love lives and bond over their recent failed relationships. Later that night, they catch a movie over at Jamie's place. The film is a cheesy rom-com which ignites a conversation between them,
Married to the man of my dreams. Bum, 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 bum.
as they discuss how intimacy is marketed as an emotional act in the movies when it is purely physical. Overcome by loneliness, the couple decides to have romantic moments together, but agrees on forming a pact before the act.
Yeah, thought you might be a good kisser.
Your breasts.
What about them?
They intrigued me.
Oh, I think they're so tiny.
Still breasts.
Thanks.
The agreed pact cites 4 rules. 1. It would not lead to a relationship. 2. There will be no romantic emotions. 3. It's just fun. And 4. Regardless of the outcome, they'd remain friends. They seal the pact by swearing on a mobile Bible app and go on to do the nasty.
Let me tell you how I like it. Just kidding. Go for it.
The next day, Jamie pays Dylan a visit at work as the two head out for a walk around town. Soon, they initiate a heartfelt conversation, stating their regret for having a one-night stand as it could potentially ruin their newfound friendship.
I was gonna call you this morning.
But you didn't. Freddie coming between us, and I just don't want it.
However, this sentiment is short-lived as they end up in Jamie's apartment just a few moments later, and engage in yet another round of bedroom play. In the following days, this becomes somewhat of a routine as the duo repeatedly has intense moments every day. During one of their daily rendezvous, they are interrupted by Lorna, Jamie's mom, who dropped by unexpectedly to pay Jamie a surprise visit.
Whoa, whoa. My eyes are covered.
Lorna, who just broke up with her ex-fiancé, informs Jamie that she'd be staying over for a couple weeks. Upon learning that Lorna is staying there for a while, the fun buddies realize that they'd not be getting any more action that night. As such, Dylan heads home. On the weekend, Dylan plays a game of basketball with his colleague, Tommy. After the exhausting game, the coworkers sit on a park bench as they catch their breath. While sitting, they engage in a brief conversation when Tommy questions Dylan about his relationship with Jamie. Tommy quickly clarifies that they are not dating and are merely friends with benefits.
No, we're just friends. We're messing around a little bit. What do you mean?
On hearing this, Tommy expresses his disapproval, stating that girls always catch feelings in those arrangements. However, Dylan assures Tommy that Jamie is different and remains adamant on this despite Tommy's repeated warnings. Meanwhile, over at Jamie's, Lorna and her daughter have a little mother-daughter bond chat. The former invites Jamie to spend the Independence holiday with her, over at a private house. Jamie considers the offer for a hot minute and eventually agrees to it, finding the idea of some mother-daughter alone time. The next morning, Dylan and Jamie revert to their routine and hook up, over at Dylan's place. However, when they're done with yet another steamy round, Jamie suggests that they end things as she's tired of the meaningless hookups and is looking forward to taking up dating again. Dylan agrees with her suggestion, and the two unanimously call it quits, retaining their stance as friends as they head over to the park. There, Jamie meets a new guy named Parker, who asks her out on a date. Interested in him, she accepts the offer and excitedly shares the news with Dylan.
Parker, can I have a date this Saturday?
Later that night, she meets up with Parker, and the couple instantly hits it off. Soon, that night becomes the first of many more dates the couple embarks on.
I've been waiting for someone to come up to me in the park. How is a girl like you single?
I have issues. One might even call me damaged. I kind of believe in true love.
After the 5th date, they spend the night together, but only end up breaking up the next morning when Jamie catches Parker sneaking out of her apartment before the brink of morning.
Hey!
I don't think I can be your Prince Charming.
Really?
Yeah.
On the eve of Independence Day, Jamie returns home to find her mum missing. She searches the house earnestly for her but ultimately finds a note from Lorna, apologizing for ditching her and explaining that she left to visit her ex Victor. A disappointed Jamie immediately calls Dylan and vents to him about her mum ditching her. To help lift her spirits, Dylan invites her to accompany him to La to see his family. Jamie immediately declines the offer, but when Dylan coerces her and orders her plane ticket, she is left with no choice but to tag along. On arriving at his childhood home, Dylan introduces Jamie to his sister, Annie, and her son, Sam. He also shows her his dad, who, due to his Alzheimer's, confuses her for a girl named Deed.
You remind me of a girl I used to know.
Pleasure meeting you. You have a beautiful house.
Eventually, she offloads her bag and gets settled in. Later that night, Dylan drops by her room and suggests they have fun, as they are both back to being single.
So, no?
No, because I just got dumped, so...
However, Jamie rejects the offer as she's still feeling heartbroken over Parker's betrayal. The friends ultimately decide to have some platonic activities instead, as they drink and dance through the night. After they've had their fun, the pair shares an intimate moment as they express their gratitude for having each other in their lives. This leads to Jamie kissing Dylan, and they eventually go on to have a passionate yet intimate fun encounter for the remainder of the night. On the evening of the next day, the entire family heads out for dinner at a public restaurant. The group is having a swell time, until Dylan's dad has one of his amnesic episodes due to his Alzheimer's. He asks where his wife is, thus creating an awkward situation. Amongst them is Dylan, and Annie calmly explain that she had divorced him several years ago. Reminded by the disheartening news, he flares up and causes a scene in the restaurant. The following morning, Dylan and Jamie go out for a run and end up just a few meters from LA's famous Hollywood sign. Dylan suggests they scale the fence and make it all the way to the sign, but Jamie warns her against it, citing that the city holds the landmark in high regard. Eventually, she convinces him to join her, and the pair make it atop the sign and have a long talk while sitting on it. She asks him why he never told her about any of his parents, but Dylan deflects from the topic, explaining that he doesn't want to talk about it. Just then, their conversation is interrupted by the LAPD, who arrive in a helicopter to bust the duo.
They actually wrapped you in a foil blanket.
Leave the remote.
Over, Dylan. Shut up. Ow, ow.
After settling down from the eventful morning, Dylan has a chat with Annie. The big sister teases him about Jamie and asks why he isn't dating her. Dylan makes up some petty excuses but can't seem to come up with a tangible reason, which leads Annie to pester him even more. Fed up with her teases, he tells her that Jamie is messed up in the head and leaves the room as she tags along. However, Jamie, who, unbeknownst to them, was hiding in a box in the room, hears the entire thing and is severely hurt by his words. Later that evening, she packs up her bags and tells the family that an emergency came up in New York. As she hastily takes her leave, Dylan tries to pursue her to figure out what's wrong, but fails to catch her. The holiday ends, and Dylan returns to New York. He drops multiple texts and places numerous calls to Jamie, but she ignores all his attempts at reaching her. Running out of options, he resorts to visiting one of the spots she showed him on his first day in New York. He finds her there. He questions why she's been ignoring him, prompting her to reveal everything she heard in his house that day. The duo eventually get into a heated argument on the subject, which ultimately ends with Jamie leaving and calling him a hole. A distraught Dylan returns home at the end of the day and catches the same movie he saw with Jamie on the first night they hung out together. On the next day, Annie calls him and asks that he take care of their dad for a few days, as she's going with Sam for a class trip and as such, can't take care of the old man. Dylan willingly agrees and picks up his dad at the airport the following day. At the airport, father and son share a meal together, as they have a heartfelt conversation. While talking, his dad recounts a story of his youth, telling his son about Deed, the girl who he mistook Jamie for. Deed was the love of his life, who he fell madly for, but ended up losing due to his youthful carelessness. The experienced father warns Dylan about the lifelong regret that comes with losing the love of one's life and asks him to fight for Jamie if he thinks that she's truly the one.
But life is goddamn short and you can't waste a minute of it.
Jamie?
Yeah, what's going on with her? Fix it.
She won't talk to me.
Maybe she'll listen.
Inspired by his speech, Dylan comes up with an elaborate plan to get Jamie back. With Lorna's help, he gets Jamie to come to Grand Central, where he organized a flash mob to dance, thus reenacting their first night together. He walks to her and apologizes for all that he said, before declaring his love for her.
I miss you.
Yeah, I miss you too.
Jamie, will you be my best friend again? I want my best friend back because I'm in love with her.
A teary-eyed Jamie accepts his apology, and the two share a kiss. The new couple then makes their way down a street to a cafe on an official first date as the movie ends with them kissing.